Hello and welcome back to week 3 of our ALZ weekly questions. I'm joined again by the entire team. And this week we are going to answer a common question that we're getting, which is how do I update the policies in my ALZ deployment to the latest that we released from the ALZ team? But first, we were actually just discussing this before we came on and recorded this. We actually all said, should you update your policies to the latest, right? Just because we've released something doesn't mean you should necessarily just do it, right? Once you've deployed ALZ once, you've obviously got our baseline at the latest that was available then. But we make releases sort of every 6 months or so, sometimes a bit more regularly. And they bring new policies all the time, right? And you might not actually want some of those policies, or you might want just some of them. So, a good place for you all to check out is our What's New page, right? aka.ms/ALZ/What's New, which goes back to our old enterprise scale repo today, which is where the portal experience lives and all of our policies actually live today. That is where we release and tell you what's going on and how they're updated and what we've changed and all of those things. That's a good place to get a good summary. And then all of those policies that we do the work on there, they get synced into the Azure Landing Zones library. And at some point in the future, hopefully pretty soon, we're going to swap that around. So the library will be the source of truth. So we're nearly there to getting ready to do that bit of work. But you don't need to worry about that. Go on,
Jack,
Matt.
is it worth pointing out, because we're now using policy versioning for built-in policies, remember that you will get patch updates for built-in policies automatically because you can't actually pin to a patch version. It won't let you.
Yeah.
So you will get some updates anyway. So if there is a bug in a built-in policy, you might not actually have to do anything. They might patch that behind the scenes and it will automatically just
great call out. And yeah, obviously custom policy versioning is something that's being worked on as well. So hopefully that will be something that exists in the future. And ALZ supports policy versioning in all the assignments, right? We've done all that work. So you can take advantage of that as well. But yeah, once you've reviewed all the documentation and, maybe gone, actually, I do want to upgrade to that baseline that the ALZ team has updated for me. You may be then wondering, well, how do I do that, right? I've got Terraform, I've got Bicep. What's the process of going through that? So today we're going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour on how you approach that. So Matt or Zach, who wants to go first talking about Terraform or Bicep? Don't all fight.
Let's Bicep go first for once.
Bicep, there we go. I knew. All right, Zach, you are up. So yeah, do you want to take us through on how we would upgrade Bicep to the latest version of our policy baseline?
Of course. Let's go ahead and share this.
All right.
All right. So for those who aren't familiar with the new framework, we do have a variety of different kind of how-tos within our Accelerator documentation. Specifically, in today's context, we'll look at the updating the ALZ library version. So for anybody who's starting out with a brand new kind of version of the Accelerator, and as we're kind of getting to the point where we're ready to add an additional version to the library, feel free to come out here and kind of check things out. We have pretty thorough documentation and kind of automation to help kind of get you along and kind of get you ready to incorporate the new versions. So essentially what we do first is just kind of give you an understanding of the ALZ library structure. You'll have these exact same directory structures mapped up into your Bootstrap repository, so they should all align. You will see a variety of different, so within this core library directory here, you'll see a bunch of different JSON files that correlate to all the different policy definitions, policy set definitions, the role definitions, and then the policy assignments. So these are all the baseline ALZ kind of default that we provide out of the box as part of the library. Just be aware that we also have a metadata file that's specifically kind of oriented towards and defines which specific version is in your repository at that point in time. So at the recording of this video, you will see 2025 09.2. So that's the current version we're pinned to within the Accelerator as of today. Obviously, when you are ready to actually bump up, you'll essentially change this metadata file. And essentially, there's a kind of a few different steps you want to do. So in terms of prerequisites, you'll first want to go out to the ALZ lib GitHub repository, which has some different packages that you can use to actually install the ALZ lib tool directly. you want to make sure that you have PowerShell, PowerShell Core 7.0 or later, which is required for the actual update script that we have as part of the kind of upgrade process. And then, of course, make sure that you do have Git in place just for tracking the changes. The one thing we do want to call out as part of step one, once you do have all those prerequisites set up, is to make sure that you have understanding of all the changes that are kind of entailed within that repository for the library. So look and make sure that it's something that you actually want to incorporate, that you are aware of the changes. We do have obviously the what if operator that we utilize as part of the kind of deployment pipeline. So you will get an idea of what's going to be changing prior to it changing directly within the actual environment. But just be aware that there may be deprecated policies, there may be some specific definitions that are changing, or even just policy assignments. And along with that, so in terms of, as we're kind of mentioning about the metadata file, the step two is just to make sure that you do go ahead and update that version. This is just an example. It will be specific to whatever we pin it to in the library, but you'll want to directly change that in that metadata.json. Once you do that, this is kind of like one of the pieces that we'll probably start to incorporate within the script. But for now, you essentially just want to run these two PowerShell commandlets to basically remove the existing directory structure for the library. So essentially, you're starting fresh and you're not having like duplicate values. Then once you do that, you essentially want to go into and regenerate the ALZ library to that particular path that was just deleted. So now that, because you have that metadata.json pinned to that new version, you can go ahead and run this script to regenerate all the library. And then essentially we have a script that goes in after the fact. So once that library is regenerated in the ALZ directory, essentially what you'll do is we have a dedicated PowerShell script in the repository called update ALZ references.ps1. You want to go to that and then essentially run these two commandlets, and this will replace all of the values within the bicep main.bicep files as part of the policy changes that were happening, or the roles and whatever else was changed in the library. Yeah, and then essentially once that's all done, you'll essentially be good to go. Just go ahead and commit and review your changes as you need to, and then go ahead and push that up to and create a PR so that you can kind of check things in. And then of course you'll run the what if operator to kind of see what's going to be changed in your environment before it happens. And then you can, once you're kind of confident that you're comfortable with everything that's going to be changed, go ahead and make those changes and merge to main, which will deploy the updates to your actual environment. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of the bicep kind of deployment structure for the library updates. Obviously, if you have any questions or run into any issues once we do actually go live with the changes, feel free to open the issue. But with that, I'll go ahead and hand over the Terraform side to Matt and Jared.
Awesome. All right, let me do this. So yeah, Matt, over to you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Zach, just a quick question before we move on. And this isn't being flippant, but if we've replaced like one policy with another and we've changed the assignment with bicep, do you cover the fact you've got to manually delete the old one? Like, I'm thinking when we switched over our diagnostic logs from one to another, you could potentially have two dying policies competing, and couldn't you? So is there a task in your list to go and double check and make them manually remove stuff that you don't need anymore?
So thankfully now, now that we've moved to deployment stacks, which is kind of more of the details in relation to Azure Bicep, we have kind of a way to automatically clean up those policies based upon the scope of the deployment. So you no longer have to kind of go into and manually remove those potentially deprecated policies. So that should make all of your lives a lot easier.
We're slowly closing the gap to Terraform. We are gonna slowly take over.
I'm sure everyone's tired of it now, but I always make a joke about deleting stuff. But I'm now not allowed to do that because we've so with Terraform, let me just find the window. With Terraform, it's exactly the same, right? We use the same tool under underneath in the Terraform provider than we do to generate the bicep library. It's part of our aim to kind of get all of the implementations identical because they're using the same tool. So whereas bicep uses ALZ lib tool, we use the ALZ lib Go module in the Terraform provider. So exactly the same as Zach. Essentially, you've got a library reference in your provider declaration, which you can update. Now, there are two ways of doing it. You can either, if you've kind of rolled your own here and you're doing it yourself, you might use kind of library reference. But if you've used the accelerator, and Jared, keep me honest here, what you'll see is a local path here instead of, you'll see a custom URL with a local path. And it's actually in that local path that you need to change the metadata file, but it's exactly the same, right? All we're doing is pointing to platform/ALZ. And if you're wondering why it says that, it's because in the Azure Landing Zone library, then that's the directory it's in. And this is the release tag that we've got, right? So again, you just change that number to whatever the latest is, and then you run your Terraform plan and you'll get a series of changes, and then you can review that in the standard pull request type way. Jared, have I got that right for those people who use the accelerator? It does actually cover that in here, actually. If you've got a local library, you may have a metadata.json file in the root that contains.
Yeah, I can quickly show you what it looks like in the.
Yeah.
1 second.
Jared's always got an accelerator deployment ready to go. Like, standby.
You just have to give me 1 second.
But yeah, I think, Matt, you make a really good point. Like, you may be wondering why we have all those files for bicep. Now, we have those files just because of a bicep limitation where we have to have all of the values known at runtime. Whereas in Terraform, the provider and the great work that Matt and Jared have done, they use the lib tool and the lib module, as Matt just said, to pull that dynamically when Terraform is running. So we don't have that luxury in bicep today. We'd love to get there, but hey, that is why we have files checked in manually for bicep, but we don't have them for Terraform, if in case you're wondering. So yeah, Jared, let's add your screen. And there we go.
So this is when you run the accelerator, you get something that looks like this, and you can see we've got a custom URL, which is pointing to our lib folder, which is a relative folder to the root. So in this lib folder, we've got an ALZ library metadata.json file, and that gets automatically read by the provider. And basically, this is the thing that you're going to be updating, is this ref here with the accelerator, and then update that ref, run the Terraform plan. You'll see what's changing, which policies are getting added, which policies are getting removed. That's all there is to it, really, for updating policies. There's not much more than that. We do have an upgrade guide, which I think Jack will share the link to it in a second, but this does talk you through the process as well. And it also talks you through upgrading the modules as well for Terraform. So you've got the whole process here, and it talks you through how to do a diff and all that kind of stuff as well. So it can be a useful process to follow if you do want to get the latest. But yeah, that's it basically. There's just one place in the accelerator that you need to update it.
And from that point, right, we've made it exactly the same as Zach showed. Bicep is exactly the same. You update a metadata file, exactly the same metadata file. Yeah. You just use the lib tool to generate a library and put files locally. And in Terraform, you just don't have to have the files locally. You just update the library reference in the metadata file, and the provider does the work for you. But all coming from the same source of truth from that library. And today, that is actually sourced from the enterprise scale repo. We have a sync job that pulls them into the library, but that will be going very, very soon. As will be, we're going to move all of the policy documentation that's currently enterprise scale wiki into the tech doc site. We've actually got a PR open if you go looking. We're just cutting a release right now for the latest policy baseline as of this time in the end of January 2026. And then you'll see that all move across. So you'll see more and more stuff start appearing in that tech doc site. Any other points, gents? But I think hopefully that gets everybody ready for the upcoming release that we're about to make. No, awesome. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining. As always, if you've got any more questions for us, we've got lots in the list and lots to get through, but we are slowly ticking them through, and there's many weeks in the year, so we need more than we've currently got. So please do log them at aka.ms/ALZ/questions, and we'll catch you all next week. Thanks, team.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye.